how do you, like, the fact that you just gave your business away, would you do that again?
If the Lord says yes, and people are like, oh, does he hear voices? There's a strong inkling. I sensed it in 14, and I said no. There's a strong inkling to say stay in Spain, and I said no. And then when I felt the same thing, I'm like, I keep saying no.
Yeah.
Would I do it again? 100%.
Welcome to The Friday Habit with Mark Labriola and Benjamin Manley. The Friday Habit is for small business owners, freelancers, and creatives who are ready to take their business to the next level. Join us as we discover how to apply the strategies we learn to grow our businesses, make more money, and live every day like it's Friday. All right. Hey, today, everybody, we have a guest here in studio, which is always awesome. I love it when we can have someone come in and hang out in person because there's nothing like an in-person conversation. And you're in for a treat because we have Steve Van Is it Diest or Diest?
It's Diest.
Okay.
It took me until I was 40 years old that I learned German and Dutch. You pronounce the second vowel.
Yeah. That's where I was coming from.
Yeah.
Because
you're German and
yes,
Dutch or Italian.
Steve Van Diest. 9. He's the president of Acumen's Front Range region, covering Denver all the way up to Fort Collins and down to Colorado Springs. So he brings a unique blend of entrepreneurial experience and international leadership. He's been all over the world leading people. He's founded 2 thriving ventures in the fast-growing sleep industry. I made a whole video about the purple pillow, so you can Google that. Earlier in his career, Steve dedicated years to international nonprofit leadership, serving communities in Chile, Spain, and Mexico. He's passionate about empowering business leaders and seeing entrepreneurs build impactful businesses. So, Steve, welcome to the Friday Habit.
It is so fun to be here. It's better than doing it on the Zoom or
I know, because you podcast a lot, too, and so you're always doing Zoom calls.
Yeah.
And recently, I listened to your episode. You interviewed the guy who is Q Barbecue, the barbecue
GQ
place?
Barbecue?
GQ, yeah.
And I ate there last week, too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's a good place.
It is.
Like, I wouldn't say... Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to give an unfair review of it, but I will say as far as like a delicious pulled pork sandwich, it's fantastic. And I feel like the sandwich is one of those that you can really... a lot of people, it's just kind of on the menu. It can kind of be soggy or just unthought, but like they have like this apple slaw that goes on top of it, and it's like very intentional and very delicious.
Yeah, I don't know if they're sponsoring this podcast today.
Hey, we're always open for sponsorships.
Jason and Nick, you guys should.
That's right.
They're great friends and clients, and yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I got into smoking barbecue this past summer.
Okay.
My kids bought me a smoker.
Okay, like a Traeger or what?
No, I went Weber.
Weber kettle? Like just, is it like a tall standing one? Is it electric? What is it?
It's an electric pellet grill they released this past year in 24. And it has changed me, except I failed. My first thing, I thought, I'm going big, 18-pound brisket.
You did brisket? Mistake.
Total fail.
Yeah.
So then I went and sat at the feet of the GQ barbecue experts and said, what did I do wrong? And I learned.
Yeah.
And I've done one since, and my kids say it's amazing.
Okay, yeah. I have mastered the brisket.
You have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's the hardest one, I think.
It is. Yeah. It took me, probably 3 tries. But I love cooking, and I'm in it. Like I'm watching Franklin Barbecue, and like figuring out, okay, how do you do this, and following the instructions, temperature, time, all this kind of stuff. And I'm a purist, so I have a big green egg, and so I use lump charcoal, airflow, like it's a thing.
You should come over to my house this Saturday for dinner, and we're gonna have some pulled pork.
Okay.
And then you can make fun of me, and I'm doing rotisserie chickens.
All right, nice.
Yeah.
The old rotisserie, that's a good one too. Beer butt, like you put it on a beer can. And,
no.
Okay.
I'm gonna brine it the day before.
Okay.
And then I've got my kids bought me for Christmas the rotisserie contraption.
Oh yeah.
It spins for 5 or 6 hours.
Oh, it's like you have your own personal Costco in your backyard.
I do.
Yeah.
They're not $5.99 though. I don't know how they pull that off.
Yeah.
They must be like genetically modified. I'm sure those aren't real chickens.
They're grown in a lab.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it could be the thing they do with the hot dog where they lose money on it, but you're going to come in and spend $300 worth of like junk anyway. So it's like, I came for the chicken and I left with a pellet grill.
Yeah. We used to get people to come into our mattress stores for a $2,000 mattress and they'd leave with a $100 pillow. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, see? Yeah. The chicken's the pillow, you know?
Yeah.
Or the mattress.
Yeah, it's interesting you've got salespeople. And funny because I walked into the mattress industry in 2008. Mm-hmm. I had just left 14 years of international nonprofit, Christian ministry, lived at all these places that you mentioned.
Quick question, right? Because I'm curious about this because we've never talked about this. You felt called into ministry, like a lot of good, nice people like get called into ministry and they got to raise support. And I'm assuming you had to raise support.
We did. I met my wife in Brazil as juniors in college on a leadership program. Fell in love. She's at the University of Texas getting international business and Spanish degree. Yeah. I was getting a nerd degree in the West Coast. We were both teachers in Southern California. We're like, no, we want to go do this. And here's the tip for how to raise money. Okay. So we lived in our first apartment by ourselves. Newly married, exhausted teachers. And then we knew we were going to full-time ministry, so we moved into my house that I grew up in.
Okay. With your parents?
Yes.
They were living there still?
Yeah. Yes.
You didn't buy the old family house and moved in.
I mean, we lived, and you're talking a 1960s home, done really well.
Yeah.
I stayed in my old bedroom. My wife was like, we've been married a year. This is weird when sexy time comes because your parents are.
Yeah. It's a paper thin wall separating you.
You hear my dad snore at night. And so, but the speed, I would lock myself in that room, and is pre dating myself. We didn't have cell phones. But they hooked up a landline
in your room.
Yeah, in my old.
Oh wow,
my old
lucky!
Room.
That only the rich kids had the landline in their room.
Yeah, but especially when your rich kids married, moving back home. And so we stayed in that room, and I would lock myself in. We didn't have. I don't even know if I had a computer.
Yeah.
And
it was like late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, it was early 90s.
Oh, early 90s.
Yeah, 93.
Oh, wow.
And I had a piece of paper. This is good old sales coaching. And I had circles on it.
Okay.
Like 100 circles. One said calls, appointments, and then closed. And I would literally make phone calls and cross off.
Okay.
No emails to 100 people in one slot. I would just get on the phone, and I would try to make 10 to 15 phone calls a night.
Wow. And this is cold calls?
No, they were connections.
They knew of you, or they knew of the ministry.
Mostly they knew of me.
Church.
They didn't really know of the ministry.
Okay.
So part of a church, part of my parents' connections. I grew up in a Dutch dairy family in Southern California.
That's why you're so big and strong.
Yeah,
if you can't see, but the guy's like 6'3.5". 6'5"?
6'4". My dad's 6'5", so thank you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I knew it was in that range.
But in the ogre status.
Yeah, he's got like the body of a Greek god, he's...
the Greek god
it's all that dairy.
It does. It starts big, and then it goes a little soft, and then it goes pretty skinny. But the Dutch dairy industry, everybody knew it was in dairy or... some retail. I would have described my grandfather, and he had a pretty big dairy back in the day. I always would have said, until about my mid-30s, when my entrepreneurial journey started, is that Grandpa was a dairyman. Mm-hmm. And then I went back to grad school and got a business degree in social and civic entrepreneurship. And I was like, wait, Grandpa had a processing plant, so he bought milk from all of these other dairies around Southern California. And then he had these things in Southern California, they were drive-in dairies.
Oh, wow.
And so it'd be like taking a 7-Eleven and saying, hey, we're going to drive our car right through the middle of it. A couple teenagers are like, what would you like? And you say, I'd like some half-gallon of milk, butter, orange juice, chips, bread. It was like a little mini store. And I grew up...
A drive-through?
A drive-through. They're all over Southern California.
That's cool.
And he had 9 of those back in the 70s and 80s. And then we sold, it was Van's Dairy Milk.
Okay.
Van Diest.
Yeah.
Van's Dairy. I still have the glass bottles. I have some metal bottles. I don't have any cartons. I'm trying to get the sign from my father's backyard and steal it back, a big old Van's Dairy Milk sign. And so growing up in that, that was kind of, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I went back and went, wait, it's in my blood. It skipped my mom and dad, teacher, blue collar.
Okay.
And they worked amazingly, provided a great home for us. But my wife and I walked into that world, and it's like, I'm in this bedroom, and I got to get out. So we raised our support really fast.
Okay.
And
that was good motivation to make those calls every night.
It was. And so sometimes you look at salespeople, what's the motivation of making the emails, the texts, the phone calls? And there's got to be a hunger. It can't just be, I love money, but it's like, I'm trying to attain stuff. And then they dropped us into Boulder, Colorado. We worked at CU Boulder for a long time as young campus pastors, missionaries, but we had a desire to get overseas.
Okay.
And my wife's Latina, and so...
I like how you said Latina.
Yeah,
like all of a sudden.
She'll say, hey, would you guys like some tortillas?
Yeah, it's like everything's normal in a tortilla.
Yeah. And so
that's why I'm Italian, so it's always like la briola, you know. It's like, hey, get the manigot.
So we had this passion, and we wanted. She studied abroad in Spain and spoke Spanish, and I was okay. But our first kind of wish was, let's go to. We moved down to Chile for a long while, for about a year.
Yeah.
To launch teams down there, and lived in Concepcion, Chile. It was a great experience. No kids. Came back, and then a few years later, we were asked to go start a ministry in southern Spain at Malaga on the Costa del Sol. And so we grabbed 8 recent graduates of CU Boulder, and we had a 3.5-month-old, and we sold, I think, cars, and we moved to Spain for a year.
Yeah.
And it was fabulous. Yet I'm 27 years old, and after about 10 months, I was offered a job to run southern Spain, kind of as a country, oversee it.
So clearly someone looked at you within that ministry and saw that you had leadership skills, and you were able to obviously raise support, rally people around a cause, and so you kept getting more and more responsibility within that organization.
Yeah, good and bad, as you produce in most organizations, Christian, nonprofit, for-profit, if you can produce, good or bad, coming out of insecurity or security or confidence or humility, doesn't matter. They will feed you more.
Yeah.
And so we went, and then I was fed more, but that's where the hidden insecurity. I thought, if I take this job in Spain, I'm going to miss some sort of mysterious leadership engine that only exists in the United States. And so out of insecurity, I remember having a conversation with my wife, but I didn't listen to her. She wanted to stay. The special thing about in Spain is that moms are valued. Doesn't matter if you're a mom that works, a mom with children. There's just an honor of women with kids. And here sometimes in the States, if you're working and you get a kid, you're kind of pushed to the sidelines.
Yeah.
And I missed that as a young 7-year married person, 6-year married person. And I said no. So we came back to no leadership position, kind of the same spot I had, just a staff guy in Boulder. And a couple years later, I was offered the director job in Boulder.
Okay.
Raised up a team of about 25 staff, and we had a couple hundred students involved. The insecurity was still there, but I thought I was on the right track. And I just missed the perspective now at 54 years old, and that was 27 to 30 years old. You just missed some of it.
Yeah. A
few years later, I was getting really important with myself and producing really well and performing really well. And so I was asked to go drop down into Mexico City for a kind of a consulting trip. How are we going to figure out 28 million people to draw them together into community, partner with other agencies? And I went down there, and we spent about a week and a half and just spewing great wisdom that I had at 35 years old. And I came home and I sensed, no, we're not going to send somebody else. We're going to go. And we're going to lead this charge. And really sensed it from the Lord. And my kids confirmed that they were little humans. We had 3 at the time. I think it was like 6'5", 6'4", and 2. And so we sold everything we had in Boulder County. Sold cars, houses, and said, okay, we're moving. Took about a year to raise another large chunk of cash, which obviously I could do. Yeah. And we moved down there in 2006. Right away, we found out so we got the house, and I brought a team. We launched a team of about 6. We had a bunch of interns, and we're trying to figure out how to build community around 28 million people. Found out we were pregnant right away with our 4th.
Oh, wow.
And then 6 months later, can I say this? The shit hit the fan.
I mean, you just talked about your spirituality and religion, and now you're cussing. I mean, Steve, I don't know. Yeah,
well,
of course.
in the dairy world, growing
That's right.
up, in the dairy world growing up, shit was like...
Yeah. It's just part of it. It's like if you raise female dogs, not a big deal.
Seriously, that's a big deal for me. That seems weird. But yeah, it's always like my dad would say, I'm putting on the shit kickers.
Yeah.
And they're just boots.
Yeah, there you go.
So that was normal.
So anyways, the shit hit the fan.
It did. And so I found out my wife was leaving me and wasn't in love with me, pregnant with our fourth.
Okay,
That was on a Friday around Thanksgiving.
Now, was this because, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners find this, I mean, my sister got divorced over a business. Like, you become so focused on this one thing and so consumed with it that you start to... You hear this a lot with guys who they just wanted to provide for their family, and then their kids got left behind, and the kids are like, I just wanted my dad. But it was like, well, I was providing for you. I wanted you to have a good education and, go on these vacations. They're like, I just wanted you to be home,
It's all of that. Granted, I wasn't in for-profit, but...
Right. But I'm saying it's like the same type of thing. Yeah, exactly.
It's producing. So you get really caught up in yourself and your projects. And my wife was saying she was lonely, but again, I was missing it. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear it. I think she verbalized it to one other friend, and we lived outside the city. It's a big, complicated city.
Yeah.
And mixed with hormones of being pregnant. And it's just a pretty dark city, too. It's wonderful and amazing if you've ever visited, but it's a pretty heavy city. A lot of poverty, a lot of crime. It's got a spiritual darkness to it.
Yeah.
So the Tuesday after we had this massive blowout, I convinced her and the kids to load up suitcases. This is in late November of 2006. And we flew to Dallas to go basically triage our lives.
Yeah.
And 5 or 6 days later, we find ourselves with no kids in Colorado going through 45 hours of intensive counseling over 2 weeks. Really, this is how messed up I was, because my identity was still, like you said, I'm important. I got to go do something to help 28 million people. Yet I was missing the 4 humans.
Yeah, the most important.
At home.
Yeah.
And so somewhere in the first 4 minutes, the therapist lights his candle and says, there's no shame here. And my wife starts weeping. And somewhere in the first hour and a half, I said, can you fix her?
Wrong question.
And so then I think the Wednesday of that week, he called me an asshole, but it was really a transformational. I thought it was all her because she was a mess and she was leaving me.
Yeah.
But there was an element of, it was really about transformation in our own hearts and souls and our relationships. And by God's grace, in the next year, it was brutal. She lost her mom. Her mom passed away. We did have the birth of our last son, who's 17. We're going to be empty nesters here.
That's wild.
Because we are still married 32 years later.
That's amazing.
Really hard year. But
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler. And... yeah, it was a difficult year, and I had left the ministry nonprofit I was working for, joined another nonprofit with this idea of I'm going to start something in Denver. We were living in Greeley to rest, kind of just, it's a recalibration, 2 years, and I had a couple buddies. So people go, how did you get into the mattress industry?
Yeah, it seems like such a weird transition, like going from ministering to people and building teams and being a leader of that, trying to save souls.
Yeah.
And then like you become like the My Pillow guy.
Even worse. It's like I say that in society, the jobs that rank might be podcasters are the lowest. And then it's like street workers, drug dealers, used car salesmen, and mattress.
Yeah.
And then lawyers hang out in there as well.
Yeah, that's true.
They're down there as well. You're like, what the heck? But I had a buddy in the neighborhood when we were getting healthy that year. We built this really neat community, and I was starting to grow. But I was then trying to produce another thing with the nonprofit concept in Denver. I couldn't produce.
Huh.
I couldn't raise a dollar. I couldn't gather anybody.
You had production anxiety.
It's like God shut off that part of me. And he goes, what do you think about opening up mattress stores? I'm like, that's the dumbest idea in the world.
Yeah, so I guess where does that come? Like, where was the potential in mattresses?
I saw none.
Okay.
And but he had early days. He was kind of a bottom dweller, sleep shop, dirty window, just schlepping $100, $200 mattresses.
Yeah. Is the profit margin great on mattresses or something?
$102, no.
Okay. But you're selling like a $3,000 mattress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The overhead's big because you're not.
You have to have all the inventory.
Yeah, you got $100,000 to $200,000 inventory for just one store, and your floor models are about $100,000 worth of, and then you got trucks and delivery and overhead, and
seems like
so everyone's like, oh, mattresses, it's 50% overhead or margin. You forget about all the other stuff,
right? And
the door's not flipping 25 times a day.
Yeah. But every time I walk into like a mattress firm, it's like crickets.
It is. You're like
the 3 salesmen are like, hi, back back off. I'm just looking.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so, yeah, we had a great run. We were early on in the, so we
Okay, so you
yeah.
So the ministry thing was like, all right, I can't raise support. Like, this is going, I need to figure out something else.
Yeah, I went to go work part-time to do operations, and I was going to grad school, getting my business master's degree, and I was infusing kind of the DNA of how do you take care of cities from the marketplace, and how do you, instead of going from the church side or ministry side, let's go from the marketplace, because they're producing jobs, they're producing value, they're touching hundreds of people every day.
Right.
Let's produce value. And then eventually, my buddy started a store in Boulder, and he goes, hey, I need help at least one day. He was working 7 days a week.
Okay.
And so I came in to work the floor one day and do ops.
Okay.
And he goes, what do you think about opening your own store or having the Boulder store? I'm like, that's dumb. I still was not in it. But about 6 months later, a buddy of me said, let's do it together. And we opened up a store in Cherry Creek. And then I think it was 9 months later, we opened up a store in Park Meadows. And it was like 6 months later, we opened up a store in Highlands Ranch.
So when you opened that first store, what kind of work goes into opening up a store? I mean, one, do you have to get like a small business loan or like, raise some sort of capital?
I wish I had you, and I wish I had a lot of other business advice back in the day. But again, still operating out of, because this can't be that hard. And really, we trusted our friend who had done this before. So when
he's got the system and process.
Yeah. So when we had questions, we were like, let's just go ask him. And we got good advice at times, other times really bad advice. I wish I had a council of other people around me, a larger council. And fast forward, I'll tell you about that story later. But it was 2008. So you got this whole financial crisis.
Yeah.
I go into U.S. Bank. Again, I'm not thinking local. I'm like, hey, I need a business startup loan. And they're like, yeah, we'll give you $5,000. I went, oh, the truck I'm about to buy is $60,000. Just to paint the building's $10,000.
Yeah, it's like $5,000.
And floor models are like $100,000.
That'll get me some sheets.
Seriously. And so we actually sold. What were we doing? We were renting. So I had home equity.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, we were lucked out. When I was 23 or 24 years old, my first mentor said, you got to go buy a house. I'm like, I got $1,100. He goes, go buy one. And so we bought a house in Superior in 94.
Okay, that's a good time to buy.
I wish I bought 5.
Yeah.
Or 10.
You should have just went into the real estate business.
I should have
and just started buying up properties in Boulder County.
That's where my success came from, was being dumb enough to buy a house the first time on $1,100 of savings. And that thing doubled and doubled. So when eventually we sold, we had a good chunk of equity. So we rode the business on our home equity.
So you just took your own personal finances. So did you believe in the mattress? Like, did you see the numbers with the other guy to say, okay, if we can get this up to a certain place, then we can become profitable? I mean, I guess in my mind, I'm just trying to think of, a lot of times I wonder, like, why does somebody open up a restaurant nowadays? Like, my dad has a restaurant in Florida on Anna Maria Island, and it's like the profit margins are so razor thin. It's like, the tomatoes they're measuring out to make sure they're the right weight so that it's just. I
saw it early, and like it was making sense for him in the Boulder store.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Like he's making a living.
I was doing operations. I'm like, I'm seeing the numbers.
Okay, yeah.
Did I think about it? Did we have a business plan? No.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like a gut feeling of like.
A gut feeling, let's do this, let's make it right. And then early on, we were one of the first ones that started doing SEO and paid click.
Okay. So that was something that was kind of new back then.
Yeah,
for sure.
2008, you were still getting your Saturday. And we did this as well. We'd spend $20,000 a month on Denver Post and what was the other one? Rocky Mountain News.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain News.
And you'd get the big hard sheet of paper that was in there, and it'd have good, better, best, and pictures of us. And, and we were trying to brand ourselves different than the other big box stores. Yeah,
because at that time you're competing with like American Furniture Warehouse and
Mattress
Furniture
King,
Row.
Furniture Row, Denver Mattress, Mattress Firm. There was gazillions of them.
And you're opening up, listeners don't know this, but Cherry Creek is kind of a bougie part of Denver. So I'm assuming, too, your overhead was probably expensive to have a storefront or shop over there. And was that strategic to be in Cherry Creek?
It was, because we just knew the demographic in our backyard was Polo Club, and we knew that the dollars were there. So but again, I didn't research it. I trusted a buddy. So early days, it was great trusting one other person or two.
I feel like this is leading up to the whole like trusting a buddy.
You need to as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you need to trust some people because you don't have all the knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I think that for me, one of the things that I learned earlier on, or at least I learned about myself, was that I needed to be in charge of making all the decisions, and I needed to be able to be agile and not have to rely on someone else to help me make decisions. Or if I felt something in my gut, I can't explain it, I don't know why, I want to be able to, make that call and not have somebody else being like, well, whatever. And so it would have been easier for me earlier on. I had a partner that I was kind of working with, and it would have been easy to bring them in, and like we're 50-50, and we kind of dabbled with that a little bit. But then I was working my job full time and then doing this part time. And then when I got laid off the first week of January of 2016, it was like, okay, I can't. If I'm going to go out and start getting business, I can't split all this 50-50 with somebody who's maybe not producing as much or adding as much value to the business. And so I needed to go my own way. And so for you, obviously there's probably an element of having the security of somebody who's going in with this with you. Were they also a friend, like somebody who you were like close with, like on a personal level? Good
friend, didn't have any equity. So I said, I'll do the equity. You'll basically work for free to produce that equity. And we just, by God's grace, we saw a lot of success early on. Yeah. Paid myself back, and then I gave him 50%. Okay. And so in hindsight, as an entrepreneur, capital. I think I would have done it differently. I would have started asking around, what are the creative methods
of raising money, not using my own equity,
all of that. And granted, it was 2008, so everything was tight.
Right.
And that could have also been, if you can grow a business in a recession or a depression and you can make it out, you're doing things differently than the other big boys. And it was just kind of us with one store for a year. It was just us two.
Yeah.
We'd split the hours. We'd work weekends together, and it was super busy, and we saw great success.
Yeah.
We were telling a different story. We weren't schlepping the bottom.
Yeah, so what was the story that you were telling?
Early on, we just kind of said, gosh, what are our values? And we actually went on an Old Testament passage, Micah 6:8. He has shown thee what is good and what the Lord requires of you is to act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly. Yeah. So we built that into our sales cycle. How do we act justly? And so we'd tell customers, here's pricing. This is what we're doing. There's no hidden story. To love mercy, 2% of every purchase. Hindsight, I would have done this differently. Yeah. Years later after we closed, people are like, you should have done that differently. But we gave 2% from top line revenue, not from profits. Okay. So in the first 3 years, we gave away $250,000 to charities. Wow. We were still $250,000 in debt because by that time we negotiated lines of credit and got some capital loans and things like that from U.S. Bank. I would have also gotten a little more creative. I don't know if I even heard of SBA back then.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I would have probably pursued that venture. And then to walk humbly, we just built relationships. We had beer on tap at all of our stores.
Oh, really?
So customers didn't have to buy anything. They just come in and, like you said, you come into a mattress store and people are jumping up. We'd say, hey, would you like a beer? And people would go, where am I?
Yeah.
And it was
on a Saturday, a cold beer when you're shopping for a mattress.
And maybe the Buffs are playing on Saturday. It was just different experience. And so early on, we never hired sales guys. We hired former teachers, former ministry, former nonprofits.
People you liked.
People we liked. And we knew we could teach them to sell. We couldn't teach people to have great value of mercy, justice, and love. Yeah. And so that's really how it built differently.
That's a key thing right there, I think, too, as far as like, I know for me, I made that mistake of hiring because I thought that they had a particular skill set or whatever, and then they were just a bad cultural fit, you know? And so sometimes I think that you can find people who are like, if you just really connect with somebody it's like, man, I think I can teach them this process because at their core, they're a good human being. And I think that's, a lot of people should look at hiring more like that. Like try to find good people.
In certain roles.
Yeah.
Later on, as we got bigger and we had 3 stores and at times we had 4, you're asking somebody that's a great salesperson, phenomenal human, go run operations for 3 stores. Go run operations for 20 to 30 staff and deliveries and details. And that's the piece that we missed. Yeah. We also didn't run on what everybody's heard of Traction, EOS, or Strategic Coach, and there's systems, a way to operate a business. We were operating on 2 dudes that were nonprofit and then came into for-profit and just kind of ran it like, all right, no KPIs, no rocks, no goals, no strategies, no really check-ins. And insecurity as well, as I abdicated all taking care of human resources to my business partner, and I said, I'm going to run sales. But what happens is when you just give away stuff and you don't really own it, I just started getting into the wrong leadership engine. And we did some great things. We hired felons and refugees as our warehouse managers, our drivers. There were some really cool stories. We saw refugees become citizens, and we helped them through the process, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
So it was also, we made a gazillion mistakes.
Yeah. So what would you say, looking back now, like when did it start to crack? Like when did you start to see, okay, this isn't working? And then I guess walk us through that journey of, okay, now what, Yeah,
it's the founder. I'm truly a better founder than a long-term operator. And so in 2014, it was probably worth the most amount of money I should have sold. I sensed something in my heart from the Lord, or for just anxiety. 14 would have been 6-7 years in. There's that itch.
Yeah.
I had started building the pillow company at the same time. And so maybe I was just getting tired of operating the people and the stores and the marketing and all the stuff. And I sensed I should leave, but out of insecurity, I was afraid to leave. I was afraid to sell because it was the only business I knew.
Right.
I'm like, I guess this is what people do. I had no one casting vision for me going, gosh, cash out, sell, go start something else, go leverage it all in this other thing. So I was like, I'm going to do both. And that's where it started getting dysfunctional. We also started launching then. We owned 3 stores at the time. There was the corporate store. A lot of miscommunication on how this franchise, we operated as a funky franchise for a while. And again, didn't ask outside counsel, other business owners, does this seem right? In hindsight, it wasn't right necessarily.
Yeah. Now, was your family getting healthier during this season? And
they were.
Did you have a good balance of?
We did. Some other poo-poo started showing up after that 14, around 15, 16.
Okay.
Because again, I should have sensed time is right to leave. But I didn't know. I wasn't surrounded with people that had done this. I didn't come from a family other than my grandfather who had already passed away. I didn't come from entrepreneurs. My wife came from educators. There was no one around us going, this is what you do. You grow, sell, leverage, do this.
Right. That's why it's lonely, I think, as a business owner and like an entrepreneur. I know I struggled with that for a while because all my friends just had jobs. They punched in, they punched out, like, oh, my boss is going to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I got to fire somebody, like, they're and so it's, you feel isolated and alone a lot because a lot of the people that, your friends who you love and they're good people, they just don't struggle with the same type of things. And so you feel kind of like, why would I share this with you? Because
my pastor, my wife, if I'm sharing stuff with my wife or my pastor, they're like, pray. Or, or my wife or my wife would go, can I take a baseball bat and kill somebody? She's like, she had this fighter spirit to her.
Yeah.
And, at the time I think we were at 17 stores. I had 3 of them. And so we were in charge with launching to 50 stores. We were going to grow this, but I didn't own the franchise. I was part of the franchise as a kind of a shareholder.
Yeah. Okay.
And because I was doing so much, I was out doing the wrong things. I started more operating than launching. I could tell the stress was starting to boil in my heart. And I think my good friends who were other owners of other stores started sensing it. And that's when the dysfunctional franchise, business partners, relationships started going awry. But so I dipped myself actually into counseling by myself, not for marriage, but also just for my own personal health, realizing there was still a lot of performance anxiety and insecurities, some wounds in there. And it took about 2 years of talking to my counselor to go, I'm ready to exit this. I don't know how it's done. Still had no advice.
Yeah. And so you said that while you're doing the mattress thing?
I'm also launching a pillow company.
So how did that come about?
My business partner and good friend, we flew out to Las Vegas for the furniture show. It's twice a year. And we said, let's not visit all of our Tempur-Pedic, Purple, whoever was around that time.
Yeah.
Sealy, Serta
What
Simmons.
year was this?
2014.
Okay, yeah.
Pre-Purple.
Yeah, Purple was like 2017. They were like really pushing, probably 2016.
It's a technology from the 80s. 2 brothers split and got mad, and one took Purple, and there's another one. I forget what the name of it is.
Oh.
We walked the furniture show. It's all the tchotchkes, the Easter stores, the Christmas stores, the couch stores, the linen stores, the smelly, scenty stores. And we go, let's just walk everywhere, and we won't go into the sleep stores. We'll just watch. And we saw that everybody was hawking pillows, and we hated them all. Yeah, we had some pillows that we liked, and we tried to ask this vendor, hey, can you tweak this? And we're like, no. And so we just said, let's create the upside-down company that makes all-natural customizable pillows that is retail-friendly. Because we didn't like some of our vendors.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you only need 2 of these pillows? Sorry, you got to buy 20 of them.
Right.
So then you're dropping $4,000 for 2 pillows that you think, oh, now we got to take a year to sell those.
Yeah.
So we just started creating different, kind of the bizarro manufacturer. And we started making these pillows, testing them in our own stores. And customers like, yeah. And we make some tweaks and changes. We make them in our warehouse. We bought the raw linens and organic covers and started having a run with it. And then we sold them in our franchise. And then I started just calling on, I knew what retailers wanted, so I started calling on stores across the country.
Yeah.
As I was also in charge of helping 17 stores do operations and my own heart's dying.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun. Coming out of therapy in December of 15, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to grow a pair. And I'm going to go talk to my business partner and say, I need out.
So was your plan to sell the mattress company and then go all in on the pillow company? Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then I walk into our store. He's sitting there and he goes, hey, how was therapy? I was like, it was wonderful. I got to talk to him. He goes, no, me first. And I was going to say, I need out. And he goes, I need to buy you out.
Oh.
And I went, oh my gosh. And it took us like 2 months. We got the business evaluated, great number. He was happy. I was happy. He got funding. We got approval. And June of 2016, he cut me a large check. And that afternoon, he calls me, goes, hey, the franchisor says, no, I'm not going to re-sign your franchise agreement. And as a friend, I was like, I can keep your large check, or I can just say, no, we'll do something else. So I ripped it up, and I still bought the pillow company. So he had my money. And within 2 weeks, we had another buyer. Okay. And then that was going really well. Had a letter of intent, getting all the funding. Franchisor changed his mind about 6 weeks before closing. And then it began to go sour. And you could just sense something's not right. We hired a broker to sell our business. They didn't really do it. We chose a broker that the franchisor recommended. And about a year later, had a lot of people in town trying to help me offload it. My GM wanted it, but there's all sorts of dysfunctionality now. And we couldn't get anybody to trust the franchise. And so then we sold our producing store back to the franchise for a penny. It was a couple dollars more than a penny. It was highway robbery. Yeah. And then we just on a slow death of our last store. We had sold some, and then our last death. In that time, the pillow company was growing, and I was spending more of my time there. So if I was in a mattress store, I was really working on the manufacturing business. And I tweaked it into an e-com business. And so we had 2 brands. We had a wholesale brand. I was selling to retail stores across the country. And then we had a B2C, e-com, and then I started producing sheets, and we started producing comforters and dog beds and acupuncture mats, and anything I could find my hands on with sleep, I started producing, and we started selling them. And it was a fun run. We got lucked out, showed up on the Good Morning Today show. Okay. I was good friends. And to me, it's always about relationships.
Yeah, totally.
But as I got longer in my business experience, I realized relationships are great, but please start writing contracts. And some of our early mistakes were a couple buddies starting something, and then when things go sideways and you don't have solid contracts, it just doesn't end well.
Yeah.
And
so then with the pillow company, your buddy went with you to the pillow company?
No, I bought him out when I tore up the check.
Okay. And so then you had, it seems like a great time to go into that because, again, Purple, I think, was around 2016, 2017, and it was hot. I remember I was getting all these ads for Purple pillows on my Facebook feed, and I was wanting to do this experiment. Back then, you needed like 500 subs to monetize your channel. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make a pillow review about this Purple pillow.
I watched your video.
Yeah, so I did the Purple pillow review, and that thing took off. It got like, 80,000. I got 500 subs, and I monetized my channel. And like just off that, I think I made like $400 on Google, like just mailbox money. We're making that Purple pillow video. But it was just like, that's the whole trend jacking thing where it's like you see what's kind of out there, and I feel like the pillow and those are kind of things for me at least. I'm always looking for a good pillow, a new thing. And so now you're working on the e-com side where you're probably a lot of digital advertising and pumping a bunch of money into that.
I hired an agency like yours out of Utah, and so they were my consultants. First 2 years they crushed it, and we were seeing great growth. And then we get on the Today Show because I'm friends with Oprah's sleep doctor, and he's like, I love your pillow. It's the best thing I've ever done. There's Christmas Eve one morning. My mom calls me from Los Angeles on KTLA, popular morning Channel 5 news. She goes, I think your pillow's on TV. And I'm like, what? And that was the first instance. And then it was on Rachel Ray. And then it was on on Good Morning America or Today Show. I can't remember which
Yeah.
one. And the sales just kind of boomed. So I kind of rode that. And a few years into that, it was all me. And at that time, I had no labor. It was marketing company.
Yeah.
And all my contract labor, cut, sew, stuff, package, ship, was a sweet nonprofit in Denver called
nice.
Mile High Workshop.
Okay, so you're like helping. You get this like
And they're all natural and they're luxury. They would hire or they would employ felons, addicts, and homeless, and give them job training, life training, and that was my operation. So there's 5 to 10 people every day working on sewing and cutting and stuffing and packaging, sheets, comforters, pillows, all of our products, and I could tell. In 2020 was a great year for e-com. Wholesale stunk because everybody closed down, but e-com, everybody's at home taking their government checks, buying
online.
sheets and comforters and pillows.
Now, can you let us into a little bit of the idea of the cost? You know, you hear some of these numbers. Sometimes you hear like that people are spending like $100,000 a month on advertising because, you know, they're trying to make that $1.5 or $2 million. Like what was your ratio of, were you spending, you know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month on advertising so you kind of keep the pipeline full?
2015, 16, 17, Casper. I don't even know if they're still around.
Yeah, but I remember Casper for sure. They were kind of the first ones to come out.
They were the first ones. We were sensing it on the retail side. And that's why I went e-com in 17, because we were sensing, gosh, these memory foam mattresses, we call them Chinapedics.
Yeah.
And Casper was just pumping these things.
Great ads, digital ads,
We couldn't keep up. In the old days, we would spend, I think it was like $2.50 for the word memory foam mattress on a click.
Wow.
And when we were exiting, that word was like $80, $100 for the click. Because we couldn't keep up with these venture capitalist companies like Casper, Purple, that were just dumping tons of money in Google and Twitter and everywhere. And so there was an element of, I think at one point they were valued at $1.2 billion, yet they didn't profit.
Because it was all the money going back into $1 million ads and
so for me, being a bootstrapper, I was paying myself. We were growing, so we would sell an average pillow for about $90 on. It cost $10, $12 to ship it. Raw goods were probably another $14, $15. I think I would spend about $25 to buy a customer essentially. And so we'd spend, I think it was like $5 to $10,000 a month on paid clicks. Didn't do SEO. And we were just riding some of the popularity we'd see on TV, and we were in health magazine, we were in women's magazines, all these kind of things as your fancy pillow. But you're right; it was a hard game to keep up with.
Yeah, it's like a beast you need to feed that will never get full. It's like
no, and
it's
then
just
Apple just decides to change the algorithm. And you're like, there went $10,000 in sales January of whatever that year was. I still remember going. It just turned off overnight. Yeah.
We've had some guests on the show. The guy who invented the bottle keeper. Do you remember that product? Where it's like you put your bottle like into
another. Yeah. It's like you can get drunk at school picnics.
But they were saying like one is like you have to have all this inventory on hand where it's like, okay, now I have to buy $1 million worth of product, right? Yep. And then it was one of those things where their product was really popular during like Christmas and Father's Day, and so it was like just praying that like, okay, when this investment, hopefully it pays off, and then again they're spending $2, $3, $4 to get $1 at some points, and it's like, all right, I hope this all will eventually pay off. So
and then when you lose a rep changes, and so they just do things a little different on your Facebook campaigns or your Instagram or whatever. And it was mind numbing. I just realized I'm not having any fun. And I'm not enjoying this. And I did sense we were at that time in COVID year, we exited the mattress stores. Our last store was just kind of like, okay, we're done. We sold the other ones. And I could sense family time was one. Our family loved COVID. We had a great time at home. Tons of games. We cooked desserts every night.
We had a good time too. And because it's funny how a lot of people remember it badly. But I'm like, man, we were going on family walks, like being creative, like what we could cook because we weren't going to the grocery store every day, kind of thing. And I remember it fondly in the sense of that. Like it didn't affect me that much. And we had some really good friends in our neighborhood, so we would like hang out with them, and it was just like
we had a park across the street. It was volleyball and spike ball and cornhole. I'm like, this is And I was running an e-com business, so I had a marketing team and I had people producing. And the days that we didn't, it was like the Ventrops. We would go down to the warehouse during the early days when our warehouse was shut down for about six weeks. And we as a family would work a 10-hour shift and then ship everything. And we're like, all right. That was good.
That's kind of fun.
It was. And I bribe them with like Panda Express.
Yeah. It's like, I'll get you an ice cream cone if you come help set pillows.
And they were college students and high school students. It was a lot of fun. But I sensed I was done. It was a great run. And I wanted to be obedient. It's like in 2014 when I sensed from the Lord, you're done. And I didn't change. And it cost me. That would be one mistake because we probably lost... From 14 to 16, it was probably devalued. The business was probably devalued about $500 to $1 million. Wow. Just because of the Casper. We could see sales dripping a little bit. And then I felt like the mistakes just started. I tore up a check for $1 million just from a mistake and not having good advice. But this time I sensed from the Lord saying, you're done with the pillow company, exit. But it was exit and give it away. And so I was like, oh. That sounds terrifying. Yeah. And so I did. I basically offered it to the nonprofit. They took over the EIDL loan that equaled the assets. I had about $200,000 of raw goods on the shelf, finished product and raw goods. And that was a loan. I said, the loan's, you're good to go. It's a 30-year note. But I guess the contract was written for $1. I never took it because I said, no, I have to give it to you. Wow. And but in the same time, God was really good in that. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, okay, I'll go work for Mark or the Apple Store. Yeah. Or Starbucks. Exactly. And then out of the blue, founder of Acumen, who I'm with now, said, are you dumb enough to start this on the Front Range? And over dating a little bit over 3 or 4 months and flying back to Kansas City and seeing how the sausage was made, I'm like, I'm in. Yeah. This is a perfect mix at 50. I was just turning 50. Tomorrow is my birthday.
Is it really? Hey, happy birthday.
I know.
55?
No, 54.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay, we're exactly 10 years apart from each other.
Nice, young man.
You were born in 71.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
April Fool's Day.
Oh, you're right. Oh yeah. That's a joke.
I know. It's true, though, too. I failed my driver's test on that day. I had that cool.
And you came home and you told your mom. She's like, get out of here.
No, everybody knew because you're a 16-year-old punk in Southern California. And I'd bought 2 weeks prior a 66 Chevelle. Oh, okay. Pretty sweet muscle car. And, you're showing everybody that photo at school. This is my car, and I'm going to get it. And everybody knew I was an April Fool's baby. And the day I show up in Spanish class, second period, because I skipped first, they're like, where's your car? I go, nah, it's not here. I failed. And they're like, no, April Fool's. I actually did fail.
Oh, that's funny.
Now I want another Chevelle sometime. It'll
that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so 4 years ago today, I said yes to launching this Acumen adventure. And it's really taking the last 28 years of my first part of my life, mushing them together and going, how can I help my former self not make the mistakes? Not partner with friends without good contracts, not tear up a check, or not capital raise properly. Don't give away 2% of revenue. Give from your profits. Pay down debt. Expand. All those things that I made mistakes in. We've helped produce a community here in Colorado to help young entrepreneurs, seasoned entrepreneurs, big and small. One, not be lonely, running alone. I think probably 95% of business owners and CEOs run alone. Yeah. They might have a buddy to have bourbon with or a cigar with, and like, hey, what would you do? But if that buddy doesn't have any experience with changing comp plans for high earners, he's going to go, I don't know, I read something on the internet once. Right. But if I can put you in a room with myself and about 12 to 13 other CEOs, it really does transform going, I'm not alone. Someone's seen this before. And by God's grace, will we not make the stupid mistakes again? Yeah. Not just in business, but also in marriage, parenting, all those things that you talked about. I missed some things. Yeah. So the redos were actually, the broken marriage was really healthy because it helped reframe how we were going to do the next part of our lives, how we're going to raise kids, how we're going to accept mistakes and work through with a lot of grace and mercy. And so we're big fans of therapy and counseling and because it's made us whole. Yeah.
So transitioning over, and I think this is one cool thing about Acumen is that it's not necessarily, I guess, I don't know, you tell me, does it lead with the faith, or is it business? It's like, I was in a Christian band, right?
Yeah.
There was always
Are you a Christian band or are you a band that's Christian?
Christians in a band. Yeah, exactly. Are you Lifehouse or are you Newsboys?
Yeah. Are you Twyla Paris? Or
Yeah. And so with Acumen, there definitely seems to be some sort of faith element to it.
Deep core. Our LLC is Matthew 13:23.
Okay.
It's based on the parable of the sower. We know that if we sow seeds, there will be 30, 60, 100-fold fruit in your business and our business.
Yeah.
But we're not saying, hey, this is a Bible study or business as mission or kingdom entrepreneurship. We're saying this is taking faith-based, God-friendly men and women that run businesses here in the Front Range, and we're going to put you in a room, and we're going to help you with all the blocking and tackling, all the X's and O's. And the reason it resonated with me as to say I'm going to be on this side is when I was a business owner, some of the Christian groups that were very similar found out that I was an old ministry guy, and so their marketing was, hey, this is a group for Christian business owners. I'm like, I don't want to just talk about Jesus on Tuesday mornings, or I really need someone to help. How do I kill my business partner and bury him in the warehouse and not get caught? Can you do that? Oh, no, that's bad.
Yeah.
Or how do I do the cap raise and hiring and firing and all those things that we struggled with? If I had other business owners in my presence and we were opening up P&Ls and balance sheets and tactics, but doing it through a very biblical, godly framed value set, gosh, that would have transformed me.
Yeah.
It would have saved me all sorts of mistakes. And now I watch business owners that I've coached for 4 years. There's been about 40 that have rolled through. I think there's 27 involved now. You go, wait, just a little poking. I remember someone came in a couple months ago, a roofing company, came in, and we always ask, we do a little personal check-in, and it's about finances and personal and family and employees and culture and cash flow. And this gentleman said, we said on a scale of 0 to 10, what's your soul score? And he's like a 2. It's one of the lowest ones I've heard in 4 years. A 2, almost in tears, just struggling, blah, blah, blah. And then he presented an issue on the board, and we spent about 15, 20 minutes on that issue. And everybody's asking questions, making sure we get the full thing. We're not just trying to barf advice on somebody. And he texted me afternoon. He goes, I came in as a 2 and I left as an 8, and I have now tracks to run on how I'm going to deal with this conflict with the consultant and what I'm going to do next steps. Because what I wanted to do was just yell at the consultant. And you guys coached me and did this and said, here's how we can do legally and morally and personally. And it's fun seeing that. And I remember a couple years ago, a gentleman with a 20-year-old business partner going, I need to break up. And I'm like, ooh, I've been there.
Yeah.
I wish I had this advice. But then hearing the room, it took about 6 months for him to go emotionally and identity-wise going, yeah, this is a good move. I got to break up. And then he goes, he put it on the board, an issue. It was like, I want you guys to help me process my next conversation with my business partner. And so we get to his time. We're going to spend 15, 20 minutes on his business issue of I'm going to fly down here to where he lives, and this is what I'm going to say, and I'm going to do this. And everyone in the room shouted, no, you're not. And it just, in the next 15, 20 minutes, asking questions, because they'd known him for about a year and a half already. They knew everything about his business, P&Ls, all the weaknesses, strengths. They knew about this business partner. And they just said, no, you gotta walk in it with a different approach. And it really shaped the next 6 months and how they broke up. Really healthy. Yeah. And I still remember early on a gentleman going, how do I fire my sales manager in a godly way? And we walk through, and he's like, okay. And sometimes I'll just ask a selfish question because it makes me look good. I'm like, if you didn't solve this issue, how much is this going to cost you? And I remember him saying, this is over at Glenmore Country Club, saying, this is going to cost me $500,000 in the next 6 months if I don't change this. And he made some great changes with their advice. And you go, wait, just a small fee to be part of a member of this community? It's like we've built an advisory board. It's interesting how small businesses like you and I and my former business don't reflect what large corporations, public companies do. They have boards. Yeah. They have chairmen. They have shareholders that then advise and give direction and tweak. And you've got all these men and women that have had business experience. Yet you've got a small business in town here that's maybe doing $15 million. They got 45 employees, and they've got no one giving them advice except their wife, their bourbon buddy, cigar buddy, or maybe their pastor. And so for a small fee to be part of a community like this, we can transform business decisions and see cash flow grow, see revenue grow, see, gosh, marketing comes up all the time, or even just the question of, what are you guys doing for benefits? Are you attracting talent with that? And so when you've got 300 years worth of CEO experience in the room, that's transformational.
Yeah.
And one fixed problem over a year pays for your dues.
Right.
So
then how have you, as you've kind of, gone through different seasons in business and whatnot in your faith, how do you, like, the fact that you just gave your business away, would you do that again?
If the Lord says yes, and people are like, oh, does he hear voices? There's a strong inkling. I sensed it in 14, and I said no. There's a strong inkling to say stay in Spain, and I said no. And then when I felt the same thing, I'm like, I keep saying no.
Yeah.
Would I do it again? 100%.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things, right, that you can't really explain or try to articulate to somebody. You just feel like this is how I felt called to do,
Yeah.
And you have to move forward with that.
And I wasn't looking for a consulting group or a executive coaching outfit. It found me.
Yeah.
And so it's just, and that happened within 21 days of each other when I said, okay, I'm going to give it away.
Yeah.
And then 21 days later, the founder finds me, and he'd been looking for 2 years for somebody.
Huh.
So you go, huh.
Yeah. And you just have to be like, all right.
I'm all in.
Yeah.
And so talking to my wife and talking to my older kids, I do it again. Gosh, my 26-year-old son's wanting to buy a business. I'm like, yeah. He's like, am I young? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And totally inexperienced, but we're going to put people around you.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm joining as soon as I buy something. I'm joining.
Yeah. That's cool.
So
yeah. So then what kind of advice do you give someone who is a Christian and a business owner as far as, like, how do you run your business as a Christian? Because I feel like there's a cultural conflict. You got the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world, or whatever gurus spouting this, I wake up at 4 a.m., cold bath, hustle, grind, crush.
I did wake up at 5 a.m. and have
have
a cold bath this morning.
You're doing the thing, but then there's an element of like, oh, the Holy Spirit told me to sell my business for free. It's like,
but I also spend an hour reading, journaling, meditating, processing. How do you balance that? Things of the world, not all things of the world are lacking wisdom.
Yeah.
But I'm also testing it always. I had a young gentleman that's got a construction company, new to our community, about a year, on the margin of his faith, and didn't have a lot of experience in it. He goes, how do you do the morning? How do you process business wisdom? I said, well, have you thought about even just reading a proverb a day? It might take you 5 minutes. And I go, there's 31 days in the month mostly. There's 31 proverbs. I go, this thing is packed full of business, relational, employee, tactical wisdom. The next morning, he goes, in a text, holy crap, I had no idea this thing was so practical. So you're doing a little bit of that too. How do you run on values? It's helping people grow their inner soul, becoming whole, so that their business and their relationships are all whole. It's you can't just escape and say, there's a passage somewhere in Psalm 72, maybe, at the end. It says, David led them with a tender heart and skillful hands. And that's always been a good balance for me, going, how do I help give people high skill, bring a community of business people around them so they have high skill. I am blown away by the wisdom that's in a room when we have a 5-hour CEO council. Going, okay, there's some skill. That guy, real estate skill genius. It's nice having a lawyer on the team. People are going, why? I feel like we get free legal advice every month. Someone's got a question. It's like, no, you can't do that. And from the trades to blue collar to white collar, all sorts of different businesses. My youngest business owner, I think, is 30. And the oldest is 63, 64. You're going, that room is full of skill.
Yeah.
But I also look at those men and women going, ooh, some have gone through some marital stuff. Some have gone through losing children. Some have gone through kids that are addicted. And so it's the heart and the soul. And oftentimes in the Christian business circle, oftentimes you go to these meetings and it's a Jesus talk, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But then the business owner walks away going, that's good. And I think of an old Simpsons. Were you an old Simpsons guy?
No.
You don't remember?
My dad didn't I was a Christian. I couldn't watch The Simpsons.
Gosh. My kid did make fun of me. He goes, Dad, were we allowed to watch SpongeBob? I'm like, yeah, I just didn't like it. And then I asked him, he's 17, I go, have you watched South Park? And he goes, no. I go, oh, you should. So I think we're going to do that after he graduates high school. We're going to binge it all summer. So call me a bad parent.
Yeah. He's an adult at that point. So
exactly. He's almost 18. And he can ruin his own life. They're so much funny. But I remember a Simpsons episode, Ned Flanders. Mm-hmm. He was kind of the religious one. He had two boys, Rod and Todd.
Okay.
And he's doing this little spewing about Jesus talk and things like that. And it's got sheep and felt on this, kind of like old Sunday school. And the kids are like, well, that's all well and good for sheep, but what are we to do? And I think sometimes when Christian businessmen go to church, and I'm a faithful member and I'm part of a community, or they go to a men's Christian Bible study thing, they walk away and going, that's well and good, but how do I go raise $500,000? Or how do I actually do firings? Or how do we actually fire this marketing company and shift to this one? Is it smart? Or how do we change our comp plan by 1% because we're losing money on this style of comp? That's not talked about on a little talkamony on a Tuesday morning. And so I think you balance both. You have to have both. Mm-hmm. You have to have skillful hands and a tender heart.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer.
Just made that up.
Well, write a book on it.
No, it's funny because now...
Skillful Hands and Humble Heart.
Exactly.
Steve Van Diest.
Stupid Moves by Steve Van Diest. No, my wife's writing a book now on our marriage journey. And she goes, I think you've got a couple chapters in it. And I've been kind of going, no. And Sunday I sense, I'm like, yeah, I probably should.
Nice.
Because it was a pretty hard story of our marriage journey. Was pretty brutal.
Yeah, so, and you obviously played a big role in that. So
causing it, yes.
You could write thoroughly on it.
Yeah. So the funny thing is when I sit in a room with business owners, being a big visionary, I'm like, just follow me. I've seen it all. Mm-hmm. And trust me, I'll put you in a room with other people who are going to help grow your businesses. And by God's grace, also not destroy your kids and destroy your family and your marriage and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is it like for you now? Because so now it's kind of evolved where one is you have this cohort of great people that you're bringing together a part of this, and you're fostering relationships and doing this. You have a great happy hour, which I've been to, which that's actually where we met. Was someone else invited me to your happy hour. Yeah. And that seems like it's thriving and growing, and it's one of the most happiest happy hours I've been to, or business networking events I've been to in the Denver metro area. So that's pretty cool.
It is, and that's it's not even a core deliverable of what we do. I just started doing that because I'm like, I like people. I love seeing business transactions happen with good people. And so I first started it was called Good People, Whiskey, and Cigars. And then I realized not everybody like as debaucherous as me. And so...
you mean you watch South Park? So.
I blame my older two boys. They must have snuck and watched it, and they taught me.
Oh, okay. That's their fault.
They're in their 20s and married, so they'll destroy their own kids. And but now it's the Good People Happy Hour. And it's a room full of business development people, owners, small and big entrepreneurs, and there's co-sponsors, some neat corporations. Our next one's sponsored by Bold Vision and Numa Media at Bennett Thrasher downtown. And it took off on its own. That is really something I didn't plan for. It just happened.
Yeah.
On the Acumen side, we have these two cohorts of about 13, 14 CEOs and owners of companies. Rick McCullough is a new growth catalyst coach with us, former business owner of public companies, billion-dollar companies, energy companies. And he came out of retirement and said, I want to help businesses as well, doing it in the Acumen rhythm, the Acumen way. I want to help them grow their top line, optimize their bottom line, but also keep their storyline. And so, Rick's coming on. I'm interviewing some key exec people to launch key exec teams. And so that's really what I'm always doing. What I'm doing now is, I have this core group of business owners that I coach, and we have these two cohorts. But I'm also looking for former business owners or former kind of key execs are saying, I could do this as a lifestyle business or as a core business. And so it's building the community up and down the Front Range.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we really love to leave people with one piece of advice. Like Monday morning, as a business owner, start doing this one thing. And so, if you could give that advice, what would be that one thing that you would say? Hey, Monday morning, you should start doing X, Y, and Z to help you in your business. What do you think that would be?
I'm going to read it from a quote. No, okay. I wasn't prepared for this.
I know. Well, look, I got you on the spot here.
Yeah, it's I got to find it. Yeah, here it is. It's from the book, John Deloney's book, Building a Non-Anxious Life. Huh. I'm also part of a cohort as a human, not part of Acumen. It's outside of Acumen. It keeps me sharp as a husband, a father, as a business leader. And they made me read this book last year. How to Build a Non-Anxious Life. I don't know if it was just for me. I think it was somebody else. It wasn't for me. But this quote, if I was going to do anything, regardless if you're in full-time business, ministry, you're an employee somewhere, to build a non-anxious life, this is a quote from his book, you have to choose to invite other people into your life, knee to knee and shoulder to shoulder. You have to choose openness. You have to choose awkwardness. You have to choose to not live a life of isolation. You must choose connection. And because I work with business owners, and the Front Range is just deeply individualistic.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing that I found even here, right? I feel there's a sense of everyone's afraid that they have the secret sauce and that they don't want to get too close to somebody or share what they do because, oh, well, then you might be able to do what I do. Earlier on, I felt like I was called to just be real generous with my time and my knowledge because I taught myself everything. You know, I had no skills. It was like I had to just learn. And so when younger guys started coming to me, asking me about things, I'd give them my spreadsheets of how I price things. You know, it's like, hey, man, I wish I had somebody to, give me this kind of advice.
You help my daughter-in-law give advice for her podcast.
Yeah. And so for me, it's like one of those things where people are so guarded, because they're afraid. I'm like, there's 3.5 million people in the Denver metro area. There's more business than any one person could actually handle. It's like, so be generous with who you are and your time, but be connected, be vulnerable. Like those are the things that kind of help you through those difficult seasons. So.
Yeah, because it's not when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah,
it's when.
Yeah,
and gosh, the national stats on business owners that are in peer groups like this and other ones, the return on their growth of their business. There's some stats I looked up. There's certain multiples they see that are higher because they're part of a group like this. Yet in Colorado, we're pretty individual, and I was one of those.
Yeah.
I don't need any help. But gosh, if I had put myself in the presence for 5 to 6 hours a month to say, okay, maybe I don't learn anything this month, but next month, maybe I'll learn something. And that's the transformation. But it's being knee to knee and shoulder. Like right now, we're almost knee to knee.
Yeah.
If you were to say, Steve, if I would say, Mark, how are you doing emotionally? It's hard to lie to someone when you're that close. Shoulder to shoulder is a little easier, but you can come alongside.
Yeah.
Most business owners aren't knee to knee or shoulder to shoulder with anybody else that's a business owner.
Yeah.
So my word of advice would be get in some sort of group that knows all your junk. Mm-hmm. Knows your P&Ls, knows your balance sheets, knows how far in debt you are, everything.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fear in that, but then also a lot of freedom and release that comes in that as well.
Yeah.
So, well, Steve, dude, I mean, we could keep talking, but I appreciate this time that you've given us and the knowledge that you shared in your journey. I know that it's going to inspire somebody out there. If people wanted to connect with you, where's the best place online? If they wanted to learn more about Acumen or whatever, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, online is acumenimpact.com, ACUMEN, impact.com. Hit the resources page. You'll see upcoming happy hours or say, hey, I'm a business owner. I'm alone. I wonder if I could be considered to join a team. I don't care what size you are. If you're a public company or a private company, check us out. And then, but happy hours are a fun way. It's a really informal way to connect with other business owners as well.
Yeah. Email, do you have an email or
I
LinkedIn?
do.
Because a lot of our listeners are all over the world.
Yeah,
so.
LinkedIn, you can find me at Steve Van Diest here in Colorado. I guess I don't even know it's probably my name.
Yeah, there it is.
I'm not that smart. Email, I'm assuming you could do info@acumenimpact.com or my name. It'll find us.
It'll get you. All right, awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning into The Friday Habit. And remember to go to thefridayhabit.com. You can find show notes for this episode and ways to get in touch. And at the bottom of the page, you can find our guide to help you spend more time working on your business than always in your business. You can hit us up at hello@thefridayhabit.com. And until next time, remember, live every day like it's Friday.